Hi everyone! I hope you're all having a great week. This week I'm doing an intuitive painting of an abstract flower. First I taped my paper to my painting surface and then I did a light wash of watercolor on my paper. Once my background was dry, I used my large round brush to add some water in the shape of petals on my paper. I want to make sure my surface is wet because I'm going to be dabbing on my colors and I want them to be able to blend. I start adding in my colors by putting in the lightest shades first, and I make sure that my colors are very diluted so that they remain light. Here I'm starting to add a little bit more saturated orange towards the center of my flower. Then I add a little bit more yellow to brighten up my petals. Now I'm adding some water to the center of my flower because I'm going to start adding color in that area. Then, with the center covered, I start to darken the edges of my petals. Using the tip of a wooden skewer, I'm now going to start etching some lines into my petals. I do this carefully so I don't tear the paper. When I feel good about the etch marks I've made, I move on to adding some splatters of paint. I do this by saturating my brush with watercolor, and then I gently tap it against my finger. After adding my splatters of paint, I let my layer dry before moving on to the next step. I start my next layer of color by using my large mop brush to add some water to specific areas of my petals. Then I start dabbing in some new colors. Using the tip of my brush, I start to add some definition to my petals. Then I start using more saturated color around the center of my flower. Using my wooden skewer again, I start moving some of that paint. As watercolor dries, it gets lighter, so I'm using more saturated paint to darken the center of my flower. Then, using the same color, I use my paintbrush to start adding some more definition to my petals. As I'm progressing, I continue to work on darkening the center of my flower. Spritzing water over the wet paint helps to move it around. And when the surface is this wet, it's also easy to move it around with my skewer. Since there isn't a lot of color on the tips of my petals, I've decided to use my mop brush to add little washes of color over them. Now I'm going to add some splatters of that magenta color. And I'm adding some slashes of gold too. Before continuing on to the next step, I'll let this dry for a little bit. Once my surface is completely dry, I add a little bit of water to the center of my flower again because I'm going to add some dark purple. This dark color helps to create more contrast in my painting. Adding some splashes of this purple will help to balance out my composition. Then I use some more of that dark saturated purple to darken the center of my flower. Adding some gold at the very center of my flower will provide some nice contrast to that beautiful purple. After letting my painting dry one last time, I was ready to add my final touches. For the very last touches, I'm simply adding some dots of dark indigo at the center. Once the dots are done, I remove the tape from my paper and my painting is complete. I really love working loosely like this. It releases a lot of the pressure of having to make something perfect. And when all is said and done, I'm really happy with the final results. Thank you for making the time to join me on this journey. Have a wonderful week and happy creating!